And there we are. So good evening, everybody. It is Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here. Eastern Standard Time as we get ready to get rolling. And I'm really just building on a conversation that we had yesterday. I did an impromptu live yesterday. I jumped in and just chatted with people for a little bit. And something that I was thinking about and something that we talked about a little bit yesterday has sort of magnified itself now that we found out also that Tim Curry has passed away. Tim Curry died same day as Dolly Parton, and at the same age. They were both 80 years old, although Tim Curry was in very poor health for a long time. He had had that massive stroke that he never really recovered from. And just jumping in here, I see Saturday Morning Fan is with us, talking about Cooter from Dukes of Hazzard, and Mr. J Evil Scientist, Raccoon is there, and BrolyCon. It says oh yeah, reacting to the title of your show, The Voice of He-Man died last year. His voices inspired a generation. And Saturday Morning says has to head out. Okay, catch the rerun. It'll be there. The rerun will be there. The video should be right where it is after the fact. But the discussion, of course, yesterday was about the idea that there are no living legends coming up. There are existing living legends, and there are pre-existing cultural icons, but who in pop culture, in the world of entertainment, in the last 20 years or so, since the 2000s, has presented themselves as a new artist, performer, entertainer, what have you, that is of such cultural significance that 50 years from now, if they're still alive, they would be considered a cultural icon. Or after their passing, they would be considered a living legend. These are people who maybe they get good parts for TV shows and movies. Maybe they make good money. Maybe they're making good money out of a record deal, but that doesn't mean they're very good or the people really care who they are. And we're just not seeing it anymore. And I'm wondering, what this modern generation even has in terms of a cultural icon. And it's also part of the reason why they're so snarky and nasty about the ones who pass away. I've been seeing some nasty things being said in comments from younger people about Dolly Parton. And what has she ever done to anybody? I mean, honestly, one of the comments in particular that stood out, oh, well, I think she was a Trumpster, so no big loss with her passing. I have no idea if she was a supporter of Trump or not. I never heard anything about that. But what the hell difference does that have to do with her legacy? Who she may or may not have voted for. But that type of ignorance is something that you see quite often from younger people. And I think a lot of that is because they don't have any cultural icons, because they don't care about anything. They don't care about anything. They don't care about anyone. Their music sucks. Their TV sucks. Their movies suck. It's awful. It's really awful. You got to wonder about that. There's Pastor Rick joining us. Glad you could make it this evening. Another impromptu live coming on a little bit later here. LPH is still not here. She's still out of town doing her training. And she should be back soon because I need her to be back. I need her to be back. We fit together very well. We're very happy with each other. Life wouldn't be the same. But here we have, again, Dolly Parton and Tim Curry pass on the same day. Tim Curry was kind of overshadowed because Dolly Parton was bigger. Of course, there was Chuck Norris just recently. He was huge. He was huge, well liked by people, big cultural icon, both in sports and in acting. Of course, he was a professional martial artist, a 6-time world karate champion before retiring, going into film and then eventually into television. He had quite an illustrious and long career. Hulk Hogan, like him or hate him, cultural icon, couldn't go anywhere in the world without being recognized. Still widely recognized. He was instrumental in the development of the golden age of wrestling, for whatever it has diluted into now, because all the living legends connected with wrestling are all elderly now, because the modern wrestlers, once again, nobody really gives a shit about these people. They have their notoriety. Some of them are making good money. Some of them are popular, but are they really iconic? I don't think so. Rolicon says, this past 20 years, the music is the same thing. No iconic songs to inspire a generation. And that is, echoes something I've mentioned before that Rob Van Winkle has said. Of course, Vanilla Ice, Rob Van Winkle, talking about the modern era, that nothing significant has happened in the modern era since the iPod, and that's gone too. It's gone too. And this Fiddle Chips says, why would young people care about pop culture when the creators don't care? It's product now, not art. Young people can feel that. That's true. That's true. And I've talked about that at length on the channel. My opinions about why so many of these modern franchises are just getting destroyed. It's because the people who are writing for these franchises currently, and the producers and the directors and everybody associated, look at it purely in terms of financial possibilities. They look at a franchise and say, oh yeah, let's get our claws into Star Wars because there's a lot of money there. And it never occurs to any of them what it was that made it so culturally significant in the first place. Why was it so important to so many people? Why was it beloved? To this day, people who saw Star Wars when it came out still love it. They don't like what's been done to it, but they love the original still. Why? Why is that? Why is it so significant? And there's Venom says, I remember when Ready Player One came out and people actually complained that all the pop culture stuff was from the 80s and 90s. Well, what was Spielberg supposed to do? Fill it with modern trash? Exactly. And that older music is what makes a lot of things pop, like Guardians of the Galaxy. Why not choose modern music? Because it's no good. It's no good. And that was so popular that Guardians of the Galaxy got its own soundtracks. And what are on the soundtracks? Vintage music. Vintage music. I've talked about those peaks before, where culturally speaking, because my wife and I, we watch films all the way back to the silent era. We're not locked into a decade necessarily, because people will make the accusation that, oh, well, you grew up in the 70s, or you grew up in the 80s, whatever, and that's why you only like that. No. If that was the case, I couldn't enjoy music from the 40s or 50s because it's too old, or of silent movies or movies from the 30s and 40s because they're too old. You see what I'm saying? But you can enjoy it if it's really well done. And I'm not seeing that anymore. I'm seeing where all of this pop culture peaked right through the 80s and then started to decline. Had a lot of good stuff in the 90s, but you can see where it's dwindling right into the 2000s, and now it just trickles. Every once in a while, something comes up. The original Lord of the Rings trilogy, the Harry Potter franchise was very popular. The Walking Dead, to a point, it started out as a cultural, with a lot of cultural significance, and then it dwindled because people started to dislike it. Thought it went on too long. And Righteous says, who's cultivating new talent? No one. No. No, they're use them up and spit them out. And God forbid if you have any talent, they'll crush it. A good example of that is The Voice. Something else I've talked about on the channel in discussions before. The Voice is mediocre performers acting as judges, judging contestants who are better than they are, and then by the end of the show, making them all sound the same, crushing the uniqueness out of them. Really study that. Really take a look at what they do on that show. Really take a look at what they do on that show. Fiddlechip says the movie Obsession is a mid-Twilight Zone episode, yet because young people are force-fed franchise slop, they loved it. I didn't see Obsession. I don't know anything about it. And that's a good point though, because that's another thing that I see a lot of, where people go and see a film and the response to the film is, well, it's okay. It's okay for what it is. No, it's really not okay. It's really not okay. It's not a good film. It's not a good show. But people have become so accustomed to bad writing, bad storytelling, bad acting, bad cinematography, that when something mediocre comes out, they think it's good now. They think it's good. And then if you're able to, on the other hand, introduce a really exceptional film or show or something to someone, they're almost flabbergasted by it. I talked to somebody who went through that with Star Wars. Their kids were watching the new Star Wars barely. They thought it was boring and had never seen the original. So he sat there with his, I think he's 3 kids, sat there with his kids and watched the original Star Wars with them. And they really liked it. They really liked it and didn't understand now the modern Star Wars. What was that then? It's a mess, is what it is. It's a mess. So now, again, Dolly Parton passed away. So you're going to be hearing everything in the world about Dolly Parton. I mean, they've been pulling people out of the woodwork. There've been film clips popping up everywhere. She's been in everything from David Letterman to Captain Kangaroo. She was on Captain Kangaroo. She really got around. All those film clips are surfacing. People, anybody who bumped into her somewhere is doing an interview. Oh, the real story. Oh, this is what happened when I first met Dolly Parton. You'll be getting tons and tons of it. I'm waiting for the movie of her life to come out, which will be wildly inaccurate. Like when David Bowie, another icon, passed away, and they did the docudrama in theaters on David Bowie, and the family was pissed because they were like, none of that shit happened. What are you doing? Nothing. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. But you'll also see the merchandising jumping up. And I've noticed that. I was curious about that because someone yesterday was asking, wasn't there Dolly Parton dolls? There were. I couldn't remember who did them, but there were Dolly Parton dolls. And this is just to give you an idea of how this works. I'm gonna switch to eBay here really quick, and I'm going to open the page up and show you. I'm going to show you what's been going on with the Dolly Parton dolls. Just give me a second here to transition this. Okay. Now I'm going to go to completed auctions. If you want to find out anything for real about anything that's selling on eBay, you go to completed auctions. Okay. And I'm going to go to like a couple of days before Dolly Parton passed away. All right. I'm going to go to a couple of days before she passed away and show you what her doll sale auctions looked like. I'll try to here. Hold on a second. If I can get this to work properly. This is a handful. Okay, I got it. I'm going to open the page and share it with you. Raccoon says, I wonder if Dolly was that squeaky clean. Who knows? Who knows? I remember when she was on Saturday Night Live, because she did host on Saturday Night Live, and her stipulation, according to the Saturday Night Live cast, was, I will not use any foul language. No foul language. I don't want to hear it. And at no point will I be involved in anything that makes fun of Jesus. That was her stipulation. So let's go to, here we go. See, there's the Dolly Parton doll. Here's one sold for $30, $14.50, 63 your best offer. So we don't know what the offer was. $39, $29, $50. This is like a porcelain doll. All right, now we'll jump to, so you see $25.97, $14.99, $22, $37, $35. You get the idea, right? $20.50, the bids plus shipping and tax, of course. Now let's look to the last 24 hours. 250, 199, 185, 100 loose, 200, 229, 249, 325, 239. When I was in here earlier, I saw one that was like 400. This one got 300, 299. You see what's happened? They're going for, look at that, 295 or best offer. The value has jumped 10 times. Yeah, see, 400, 300. And these were sales. These are all sales from yesterday. They were not selling previously, hardly. Nobody cared. Now all of a sudden, they're getting 10 times as much or more. 10 times as much or more, which is pretty common because you get all those speculative buyers. You get people that are like, oh, so-and-so's dead. Let me buy this. It's going to be a hot item. But then it dies, like the Stan Lee autographs. Stan Lee, when he died, another cultural icon, like him or hate him, he was massively significant in comic books. Who's that significant in comic books now that's still working? I mean, seriously, they're all gone. McFarlane, that's negligible. He's more so known as a comic artist. I guess, I mean, he was instrumental in changing developments in comic books, but not necessarily good ones. There's a big argument there about his input in comic books, about where things were more about their actual image than storytelling. McFarlane's not a good storyteller. Okay? But he's a decent or an interesting artist, I should say. He has an interesting style. He has an interesting style. He was on the ground floor of variant covers. He was on the ground floor of deliberate variants and action figures. The Spawn series was the first one doing that on purpose. You see what I'm saying? With him, it's all marketing. But you get these speculative buyers now. And this time next year, I'm willing to bet those dolls will not sell. You'll have a hard time getting rid of them. And that the prices will be bottomed back out to whatever they started on before she passed away. Yeah, Raccoon says, why do people care about celebrity collectibles only after the person dies? Because they think they're going to profit from it. A lot of the people that are buying those, they're looking at it in terms of an investment, and that's foolish. It's just like with the speculative buying with comic books. Most notably, I've mentioned She-Hulk as an example, where graded copies of She-Hulk 9.4 to 9.8 were going for over $1,000 before the show came out. And then after the show came out, people saw how bad of a production it was. The value bottomed out. And I've mentioned before, I got a 9.6 She-Hulk for $42 afterwards, after the dust had settled. And I've still got it, or it's around here somewhere. And that's what Fiddlechips is asking. Why do people care about a comic book character when it's in a movie? Again, speculative purchases. They think if that franchise becomes popular, they can turn around and resell it later and make more money. Oh, it's hot and it's going up now. If I buy it for 100 now, maybe I can get 500 for it next year. But next year rolls around and then you can barely get what you paid for it. Because most of the time, it turns out to be rather disappointing. Most of the time, it turns out to be disappointing. But this is what's happened with Dolly. I wonder if people are selling that pancake syrup. Let me see something. Oh, people are. They're selling the pancake syrup and the batter. Look at this. Oh, they're not getting much for it. You can go down to the supermarket and buy that. You can go to I don't think it's $14 and $20, but at the supermarket, I don't know what it goes for, but I've seen it because she has the pancake syrup in the little guitar bottle. It's plastic. And the cake mix and the muffin mix and pancake mix and all of that stuff. But yeah, I was wondering if people would be on there selling it. Look at this guy, didn't do well. $5.99 or best offer. You know what that is? Somebody bought this. He already had this for $5.99. Buy it now, and somebody grabbed it because she died, and they're going to turn around and flip it on eBay. Oh my God. That's about as bad as Billy Beer. Remember Billy Beer? Billy Carter's brother. You know that his daughter had a doll. Jimmy Carter's daughter. They made a rag doll of her that they mass marketed in the mid 70s. I forget her name. Ugly doll. It was a really ugly doll. And Raccoon suggests, they say, I have the Werewolf by Night number 32, first appearance of Moon Knight. I could have sold it for 2,000 to 3,000, and I didn't. Now it's worth half that because the show flopped. Yeah, I remember that too when Moon Knight stuff was flying, and then the show came out and nobody cared. They saw that it sucked, and interest just dropped off, and that's what happens. Like I said, we lost Dolly Parton, and then we lost on the same day Tim Curry, which is not a surprise because Tim Curry was in very poor health. He was in very poor health. He had that massive stroke. He never really recovered from it. It's unfortunate. But more to the point, back to the main topic of discussion, what's really unfortunate about it is that as these people pass away, there's no one really replacing them because they're all going to go sooner or later. They're all getting very old. All the current cultural icons that you can call living legends are quite old. They're quite old. And when they pass, who's carrying that torch? When Stallone passes, when Michael Jordan passes, when Arnold Schwarzenegger passes. And of course, I've mentioned before, Arnold Schwarzenegger's not in the best health. He has a bad heart. He's had at least 3 surgeries on his heart. Dare I say it, Cher. I don't know if she's a living legend, but she is culturally iconic. And she's quite old. She is quite old despite makeup and airbrushing and wigs. Okay, she's pretty freaking old. Who is replacing these people? Is there any athlete today that measures up to Michael Jordan or Larry Bird or Magic Johnson? Anyone? LeBron James, everybody hates him. They hate him. He's an arrogant prick. They hate him. Nobody they like being around him for props. He makes a ton of money, but is he iconic? I don't know how well that'll hold up. You know, we're looking back and we're seeing people even from the silent film era that are still culturally iconic, like Charlie Chaplin. People still know who that is. The Three Stooges, they're not the silent era, but the Three Stooges, people still know who they were. They were living legends. They were cultural icons. People still know who Lucille Ball was. People still know who Elvis was, who Michael Jackson was. Hell, they still know who Jimi Hendrix was. And he never even had a top 10 hit. I don't think he ever charted, if I remember correctly. We're not getting people like that anymore. As I pointed out, it might be almost, we're closing in on 30 years here. 30 years here that these up and coming generations have no one. Have no one in the modern era that they can sit there and say, hey, yeah, wow. Even characters, you could make that argument. Garfield is a cultural icon. Snoopy is a cultural icon. You see what I'm saying? These people mattered, or people, these characters mattered and are still iconic. Are there any current cartoon characters that are iconic enough to be carried forward? You could make an argument for SpongeBob or The Simpsons or something like that, but they've been around. Remember, The Simpsons started in the late 80s. Their roots go back. What's being done now? It is old school. It says Lon Chaney, Bela Lugosi, Boris Karloff, of course. Because those original Universal movie monsters still hold up. People still remember them. People still care about them. But who cares about what's out there now? What is being produced now that's going to last for decades beyond its demise? And I can't answer the question because you know I don't like what's out there now. it makes me think of, and somebody can tell me in the comments because I can't remember his name, the actor who played Falcon in the Avengers film series, and then they turned him into Captain America. He said something about it years ago that people don't care who he is. They care about the character, but they don't care about the actors in the modern era. And it's not like it was. Even they can see it. Eric says, I can't stand when someone sees my collection and says, why don't you sell all of this stuff? This is my hobby. I'm never concerned with what it will bring in the future. Why don't they sell all of their stuff? They didn't pay for it. They don't need to worry about it. That's what you that's what you can tell them, Eric. If you didn't pay for it, you don't need to worry about it. Okay? They didn't pay for your stuff. I think LPH and I did a video on that some time ago on the channel about situations like that where people have that attitude. It's like you didn't supply any of it. You know, I did all this. I'm not hurting anybody. What do you care what I bought? What are you going to do with the money? Buy something you don't want? Buy a car? Do you have a car already? Who cares? Oh, you can get a big fancy car. I don't want one. I don't want one. I want this stuff. Leave me alone. Old Skull says Anthony Mackie. Okay, Anthony Mackie. Yeah, I couldn't remember the name of the actor. And I was paraphrasing a little bit because I don't have a quote sitting in front of me. But that's essentially what he was saying. It was like they care about the characters. They don't care about who we are. And he probably, I mean, he's old enough probably to be looking back and remembering all these people who were culturally iconic in pop culture who were who are still significant and saying, well, why can't we do that? I don't know. Why can't you? Bad writing, bad acting, bad storytelling, bad cinematography, bad music. I mean, I can go on and on. It's nothing you don't know or haven't heard. It's just not any good anymore. And then everybody wants to put their own spin on things, their own twist on things. And all they do when they twist it is make a bunch of knots. It's awful. We don't want your twist. We want a continuation of what it was if that's what you're going to do. You're going to continue Star Trek, continue it. What do we have? Muppets on Star Trek. And then they get mad. They get mad. Oh, well, you know, there's a lot of campy and silly Star Trek episodes that have been done. But it wasn't intended that way. You did this on purpose. You did this on purpose to try. It's about as bad as when a show does a singing episode. That's a sure sign of the death knell of any television program when they're going to do the all song episode. Okay? It's like we have zero ideas for this franchise. Let's make everyone sing. That's about as bad as having someone have a baby on the show. If someone has a baby on the show, it's probably their last season. Okay? Or if they adopt somebody on the show out of nowhere, probably their last season. Like Cousin Oliver. They call it the Cousin Oliver syndrome because that's the first time people really noticed it on the Brady Bunch. When Cousin Oliver came to stay for a while. Remember him? Oh my God. Or like when they had the baby on Alf. Pretty much, you may as well just shut the show down now. Just give up. They don't care anymore. They don't care to see what made the show so culturally significant, what made it iconic to begin with, what made it so beloved. And it's a story I've told before. You know, I used to do I used to be more involved with Great Eastern Conventions. They're gone now. This is in Boston in the 90s. Great Eastern Conventions and the sci-fi shows that were out there. And I can never remember who it is. I can't remember his name. It was a writer for Star Trek, and he was instrumental in the Wrath of Khan. And like I said, some of you have heard me tell this story. Wrath of Khan, arguably the best Star Trek film ever made. Wrath of Khan, Star Trek 2. And he really didn't know a lot about Star Trek, but he wanted to do the project justice, and he wanted to understand why it was so culturally significant to the people who loved that franchise so much. So he went and got the tapes from the entire 60s run and watched every single episode of Star Trek. The original binge watcher, so that he could get a feel for it. And something about the the space seed, I believe that was the name of the episode with Ricardo Montalban, resonated with him. And he was like, can we get Ricardo Montalban? What's he doing right now? Well, Fantasy Island, which was a conflict, but they figured it out. And the end result was Wrath of Khan, the best Star Trek film ever done, because that writer cared enough to find out why that show was so culturally significant and so beloved by the fans. It meant enough for him to do the job right, and he did. A modern example would be Cobra Kai, where they sat there, Machio and the other guy, I can't remember his name, took all of the comments and all of the fan discussions and everything from the last couple of decades about Karate Kid. Why is this so important? Why do they love it so much? What are some of the arguments that they have for and against it? And let's try to pick it up where it left off. I mean, they had to jump ahead, but try to pick it up where it left off. And they pulled it off. They pulled it off. They talked about things that were important to the fans because they've been talking about it for decades. They've been talking about it for decades. Yeah, Raccoon says Cobra Kai was awesome. I heard that they got kind of wonky in the last season, but I haven't seen, I think my wife and I only saw the first 3 seasons of Cobra Kai, and we liked that they addressed a lot of the things that were brought up, like that he technically cheated with the kick. That was a big one. Or that Machio's character, Daniel, was interfering in that relationship. And they were in the middle of a breakup and he should have minded his business. Or that he reignited the feud with that trick he pulled at the Halloween party. And it wasn't necessary that they had forgotten about him by then. That's all true. If you're watching the movie, it's like, yeah, that makes a lot of damn sense. Those are things people have been debating about for years, and they addressed it. And that's why it worked. Eric Reese says one of the few instances of bringing a new character on that was successful was when Star Trek Voyager brought on Seven of Nine. And that was still in keeping with the story run, because Voyager was what, the 4th Star Trek incarnation from Paramount before they finished the series, because it went Star Trek Next Generation, which Next Generation wasn't that great. It got better, but the first couple of seasons weren't very good. They had Deep Space Nine, much better, Voyager, and then Enterprise, which is kind of like the love letter to fans, because Enterprise explains a lot of things that people were always asking about Star Trek, questions that were never answered. They answered in Enterprise, which again is writers paying attention to the fans. What are all the things everybody's always asking about this show and they never get a clear answer? Let's try to nail that down. And they did. I was, what, 5 seasons? Enterprise, is that correct? I don't remember off the top of my head. I think it was 5 seasons. And I haven't seen any of those shows in a long time. But we're seeing this too much. We got bad acting, bad writing, bad music, mediocre singers, crappy cinematography that's been touched up with CGI that's obvious CGI and doesn't look good. We've got performers, actors, and musicians who are mediocre at best. I think and this is something I've complained about before, one of the biggest problems is calling everybody a damned artist now. Everybody's an artist. No, they're not. But they automatically call them an artist, and people have gotten accustomed to doing that. It's a misuse of the term. Anyone who can hum out a couple of tunes is not an artist. Okay? You could have 5,000 people that know how to play the guitar. One of them might be an artist. The rest of them are just playing an instrument. Okay, Eric says Enterprise is 4 seasons. 5th season would have led into the Romulan War that was always mentioned but never shown on screen. Okay. Yeah, like I said, I haven't seen it in a long time. Haven't seen it in a long time. Although they did not address, because Paramount doesn't likes to pretend it doesn't exist, the Filmation Saturday morning cartoon from what, 1974 of Star Trek, which actually had some pretty good writing. It's not a bad show at all. Not a bad show at all, with original voice actors from the 60s production, except for Walter Koenig, if I remember correctly. They got everybody except for Walter Koenig to do their own voice acting, which you don't often see that with animated versions of something that was live action. For example, Hulk Hogan and Rock and Wrestling, and no wrestlers did their own voices. They did skits, but they didn't do their own voices. They had voice actors portraying them. But we're just not getting any of that anymore, and I wonder how that's going to look for a future generation, because it's important. Nostalgia is important. To have things to look back on, to remember, to relive, or to re-experience with your adult mind. Maybe it's something you saw as a child, and you go and you watch it again as an adult, and you can re-experience it through a new set of eyes. For example, my wife and I, on our itinerary, because we watch vintage television programming, currently are watching The $6 Million Man. And I have not seen it since it was originally aired. And I got the box set, and we're watching The $6 Million Man. And we're at the point now where Jamie Summers has just come in, and I've got the Bionic Woman, and so I can jump off the Bionic Woman now and fit them together. But watching it now, as opposed to watching it when I was a kid, very, very different appreciation for it. It's a well-written show. It's a well-written show, and it's well acted, but I have a different appreciation for it. Or we watched the 66 Batman not too long ago. I used to watch it when I was a kid, but I did not appreciate it as much as we did now. Like, God, this is actually really funny. It's so campy and silly, but it works the way that it's done. Or we watched Johnny Quest not too long ago. What a well-written show. The original 60s Johnny Quest is very well written. It still holds up. But as a child, just another Saturday morning cartoon. Couldn't have appreciated it. And that nostalgia is important. It's fun to go back and do that. It's relaxing to go back and do that. That's why we do all of this. The comic books, the vintage magazines, the vintage toys, the old TV shows, the movies. We watched E.T. the other night. My wife had never seen it. We watched E.T., the original version before the CGI editing, because modern versions have CGI editing. Watch out for that. You want an older disc, not a modern one. Okay. That's very relaxing and it's very comforting. And it's a fun hobby for us. And, you know, all that to say this, looking forward, looking forward at the modern generations now, the young people that are coming up, when they get to be our age, what do they have to look back on? What is there? And you wonder why there's teen takeovers with people running around in the streets, smashing storefront windows and setting fire to cars and beating each other up in the street. They've got nothing. No hobbies, no interests. And they're running wild. You think that's going to get better? Oh my goodness. And August says talking about Star Trek again. Under Captain Pike, Spock had emotions, but under Captain Kirk, Spock suppressed emotions. The fans had to come up with their own theories to explain that discrepancy. And Venom says there's no sincerity in any media anymore. Everything has to be nihilistic or ironic in some way. You could never make a film like Gladiator or Rocky today. Rocky doesn't even fit the mold of a modern film because the way that a modern film is set up, if it's a film that has action in it, like Rocky is considered an action drama, you would, by page 15, you would have to have action. But Rocky, it's more than an hour into the film. You're on page like 85 before you see any action. He doesn't fight. He walks around moping because he's miserable. His life is miserable. It's not what he expected. Not what he thought it was going to be. And so the whole first half of the film is just establishing who this guy is. But you feel that. You feel that because a lot of us have felt that way. Like, God, where's my life going? What do I really have? He's got a pair of turtles. I mean, Cuff and Link, right? He has a girl he's halfway interested in. He has an attempt at boxing. He has a job he hates for the guy who runs numbers. Then he gets an opportunity and he's feeling like it's his last chance. I think a lot of us have felt that way. That's why it resonates. A modern film couldn't tolerate that. But could an audience tolerate it is the question. They're deciding for the audience what they would and would not like. That's the problem. It's kind of like, for a wrestling reference, if you ever listen to the Honky Tonk Man, who remembers the Honky Tonk Man? Fat Elvis. He has a story about Eric Bischoff, that Eric Bischoff basically told him to his face that he didn't like him. I don't like you. I don't get your gimmick. I want changes, this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And they had a falling out, a bad one. But the reality of it is, Honky Tonk Man as a heel worked. Eric Bischoff didn't understand it, but the audience did. And that's what matters. And we've got way too many of these organizations, producers and directors and actors and writers, deciding for you what you do and do not like. And when you don't, they blame you for it. And it's screw your feelings, he says right here. You remember Honky Tonk Man? That's another example of what I'm talking about too, with looking at things through modern eyes. Because my wife and I also watch vintage wrestling programs from the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. When I was a kid, I thought the Honky Tonk Man was an idiot. Watching it now, it's brilliant. I get it. I get exactly what he's doing. I get exactly what he's doing. Rick Rude, brilliant heel. That's fantastic. It's hilarious watching him work the crowd up. Adlad says nostalgia and hobbies to cure society. Maybe let's give it a shot. Well, everybody needs something to do. Everybody needs something to do. They don't have any hobbies. They're not learning anything in school. They're not getting any attention at home. Their attention span is nil. They watch TikTok videos all day and then they run the streets. Can't spell their own name. I mean, any kind of hobby. God help us. It doesn't have to be nostalgia, but any kind of hobby. Anything to give them focus. But it has to be all encompassing. And there's too many people on too many different pages. Although you can't give these kids a complete pass either, because there comes a point where they have to be responsible for their own choices, decisions, and actions. You can't always blame their parents or their environment or their upbringing. I know. I grew up in a housing project with an extremely violent parent. No father in the home, and a violent, angry, cruel mother in a housing project. And everyone I grew up with, dead, in jail, on the streets, or still living in the old neighborhood. I chose to do something different. So there's a point by which they have to make the choice. Few are willing, unfortunately. August says, now that you mentioned the 60s cartoons, the Galaxy Trio had a teleporter even before Star Trek. Was the Galaxy Trio the very first TV series that had that idea? It could be. It could be, unless it was on Doctor Who. And I don't remember. The original incarnation of Doctor Who? I don't remember that far back. The ones I remember best are John Pertwee and Tom Baker, because those are the ones I grew up watching. I used to see them on PBS television. Those are the two I remember the best. And I haven't seen those in forever, too. And I could probably watch those again now and maybe feel completely different about them. They're cheesy as hell to look at. BBC did some really shitty productions, but they had good acting and storytelling. So you can suck up the bad special effects if it's well acted and well presented. It has a decent story. But yeah, I mean, again, back to the original point, I just wonder what's left. Where's it going to go? What are these kids going to have? I'm not seeing anyone coming up anymore in music and television, in writing, in anything that I think is going to hold up. I mean, they may have a lot of opportunities. They may be getting a lot of money. They may be getting all kinds of awards. We know the awards don't matter anymore. The awards don't mean anything. The Oscars, for example, if you ever get mad about the choices at the Oscars, remember, it's a private club and you're not in it. And the rules for deciding who gets an award is whatever they say it is. And it rarely has anything to do with talent, not for the last 30 or so years. Okay. So, I mean, the awards, they don't matter. How much money they made. Sometimes it's just embarrassing. You wonder if it's money laundering with some of the productions that come out. Some of the stuff that they do with like Star Trek Academy, Money Laundering Academy is what they should probably call it. Uh, and these studios know they're hemorrhaging the money and don't seem to care. They don't seem to care. And it's just sad to see. So yeah, it has an impact every time, because that's a question that I've seen asked. Why is it that every time one of these old actors or singers or somebody dies, everyone acts like they just lost their best friend? Because in a manner of speaking, they did. In a manner of speaking, they did. Chuck Norris died, and it's like, oh, wow, really? And you knew he was old, but you didn't want him to go, because everything that he did, you got so much out of. It was shared with everyone, the TV, the movies, and everything. When Clint Eastwood dies, because he's pretty old, it's going to have the same impact. How many films with Clint Eastwood have you seen? And do you have any favorites? I mean, he's probably got 5 out of the top 10 spaghetti westerns. Very culturally significant. Never mind some of the other stuff that he's done. Remember Dirty Harry? Harry Callahan? No Nonsense Cop? Oh boy. So it is kind of like, because you have such an appreciation for what they've done. It is like you lost a friend. Don't you think? It's a sad thing. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. There's a lot to be said there. And anyone watching after the fact, feel free to chime in the comments section. Let us know what you think. If you're new, go ahead and subscribe, please. Join the family. We're all in nostalgia here. Raccoon says, why do they call it spaghetti westerns? Oh boy. Put me on the spot. I can tell you why. The reason it was called spaghetti westerns is because many of them were shot in Italy or Spain, usually with an Italian director. And so it was a reference to Italy, spaghetti westerns. Because none of those were filmed in the United States. They were not. They were, like I said, they were either filmed in Italy or Spain, in desert regions. And it was typically a reference to the director or the producer, who in most cases with those early films, that 70s genre of films, late 60s, early 70s genre of films, were Italian. That's where it comes from. But yeah, anyways, I'll go ahead and sign off. Thanks for joining us. Hope you got something out of the conversation. And hopefully the next time I do a live, my lovely wife will be here with me. LPH, are you watching? I miss you, sweetheart. So thanks again, and we'll catch you again sometime soon.